They appeared in the desert between two rivers and changed everything. No ancestors we can trace, no gradual evolution from primitive tribes. Just sudden mastery, writing systems fully formed, mathematics sophisticated enough to track celestial cycles. Cities planned with precision that suggests they knew exactly what they were building before they laid the first stone. The Sumerians didn't slowly discover civilization. They remembered it. 6,500 years ago, in the marshy plains where the Tigris and Euphrates rivers meet the Persian Gulf, the world's first cities rose from the mud, not villages that grew into towns, not settlements that evolved over centuries. Cities, complete with temples, governments, schools, legal codes, and technologies that wouldn't be matched for thousands of years. As if someone flipped a switch and humanity suddenly remembered how to build the future. This is the story of the people who invented almost everything we take for granted. The wheel, the written word, the concept of time itself, divided into 60-second minutes and 60-minute hours. Mathematics, law, democracy, autocracy, kings and empires, schools and libraries, beer. They created the template for civilization, and every culture that came after, from Egypt to Greece to Rome, built on foundations the Sumerians laid in the desert 5 millennia before Christ was born. But the deeper you look into Sumerian origins, the stranger it becomes. Because these people shouldn't have been this advanced this quickly. And they knew things, preserved things, remembered things that suggest their civilization wasn't the first. It was the latest in a cycle stretching back into time, we're told was empty of anything but hunters and gatherers. The Sumerians themselves wrote about it, about the world before the flood, about kings who ruled for thousands of years, about gods who came from the sky and taught them everything they knew. Understanding the Sumerians means understanding where we come from, not just as societies, but as a species capable of creating beauty and knowledge and order out of chaos. Everything starts here. Every law code traces back to theirs. Every empire models itself on the patterns they established. Every written story echoes myths they carved in clay before writing existed anywhere else on Earth. They are the root, and roots go deeper than we've been taught to dig. The land itself shaped them. Southern Mesopotamia, the territory between the rivers, stretching from modern-day Baghdad south to the Persian Gulf, encompassing parts of Iraq and Kuwait. Flat, marshy, prone to devastating floods when the rivers swelled with snowmelt from distant mountains, and yet incredibly fertile. The silt deposited by flooding created soil so rich that a single planting could feed a family for a year. But only if you could control the water. Only if you could build canals and dikes and irrigation systems sophisticated enough to tame two of the most unpredictable rivers in the ancient world. That's where it started, the necessity of cooperation. You can't build a canal system alone. You can't maintain flood defenses as a single family. You need organization, leadership, division of labor. Someone to design the system, someone to dig the channels, someone to maintain them. Someone to arbitrate when one farmer's irrigation interferes with another's crops. From these practical needs, civilization emerged, or re-emerged, because the speed at which the Sumerians went from scattered settlements to sophisticated city-states suggests they were applying knowledge that already existed, not discovering it for the first time. By 4,500 BC, the city-states were established. Eridu, the oldest, considered sacred, the place where civilization was said to have descended from heaven after the flood. Uruk, the largest, home to tens of thousands, protected by 6 miles of defensive walls. Ur, wealthy from trade, its ziggurats rising above the plain like artificial mountains. Lagash, Nippur, Kish, Umma. Each city an independent kingdom, each with its own patron deity, each competing for resources, for water rights, for regional dominance. And here's what makes them remarkable. These city-states developed democracy before the word existed. Council governance where major decisions required consensus among elders, temple priests, and representatives from different professions. Elected officials managing practical matters like irrigation maintenance, trade agreements, conflict resolution. The people had a voice, Not universal suffrage as we understand it, but a system where power was distributed, debated, shared, until war made it impossible. Because the steppes to the east and the deserts to the west were full of nomadic peoples who saw these rich cities and wanted what they had. And when you're fighting for survival, democracy is slow. Committees can't respond to invasion. So the Lugal emerged, the big man, the king. Not a hereditary position, not initially. An emergency war leader granted temporary absolute authority to defend the city. Except temporary became permanent. And the kings who saved their cities from destruction became the kings who ruled them in peace. And eventually the kings who conquered other cities and built the world's first empires. But before the kings, before the empires, there was the culture. The daily life that made Sumer more than just another collection of settlements fighting over water and land. There was structure, social mobility, opportunity. You weren't necessarily trapped by birth. A farmer's son who showed aptitude could become a scribe. A scribe who demonstrated wisdom could become a temple priest. A priest who proved capable could advise kings. The system had rigidity, yes, upper classes and lower classes, nobility and commoners. But it also had pathways upward for those with talent and determination. The upper classes were the priests, the scribes, the royal families, the administrators who kept the complex machinery of the city-state functioning. These were the educated elite, trained from childhood in the aduba, the tablet houses, the world's first schools. They learned cuneiform script, the wedge-shaped writing system pressed into wet clay tablets. They studied mathematics, not abstract theory, but practical calculation, how to measure fields, how to calculate grain yields, how to predict flood cycles, how to track the movements of planets and stars across the sky, because the Sumerians believed the gods communicated through celestial events, and reading the heavens was reading divine will. Below them, the craftsmen, sculptors who carved stone and shaped clay into forms of stunning beauty, jewelers working gold and lapis lazuli into intricate designs, metalworkers who pioneered bronze casting, creating tools and weapons harder and more durable than anything made from pure copper or stone, carpenters, leather workers, potters, basket weavers, builders. Each profession had its own guild, its own standards, its own training systems, where masters passed knowledge to apprentices across generations. And then the farmers, the shepherds, the laborers. The majority of the population, working the fields, tending the flocks, maintaining the canals, building the ziggurats stone by stone. Hard lives, yes, but lives with structure, with festivals that broke the monotony, with laws that protected them from arbitrary abuse, with temples that fed them during famines. The Sumerian system wasn't utopian, but it was sophisticated. It worked. It sustained millions of people across thousands of years in a landscape that should have been too harsh to support large populations. The innovations they created out of necessity became the foundations of everything that followed. The wheel, invented not for transportation, but for pottery, then adapted for carts and chariots. The plow, transforming agriculture from manual labor with hoes to ox-drawn efficiency. The sailboat, enabling trade up and down the rivers and across the Persian Gulf to distant lands. The potter's wheel, the kiln, the loom. Technologies we still use, in evolved forms, 5,000 years later. But the greatest invention was writing. Not pictures representing objects, not simple tallies keeping count, but actual writing. Symbols representing sounds. Phonetic script that could capture any word in the Sumerian language. It started as accounting, temple priests tracking grain stores and livestock. Marks on clay tablets recording transactions, debts, distributions. Practical, mundane. But then someone realized you could use these symbols to record more than numbers. You could capture stories, laws, history, prayers. Knowledge itself could be preserved, transmitted, accumulated across generations instead of being lost when the wise elders died. The libraries grew. The Epic of Gilgamesh, humanity's oldest written story, recorded on 12 clay tablets, telling of a king who sought immortality and learned to accept death. Legal codes like the Code of Ur-Nammu, predating Hammurabi by 3 centuries, establishing justice through written law instead of arbitrary judgment. Medical texts describing surgeries and herbal treatments. Mathematical tablets solving problems in geometry and algebra. Astronomical observations tracking Venus across the sky with precision that enabled accurate calendar systems. All preserved in clay, baked hard, surviving floods and fires, and the collapse of empires to tell us who these people were. And who they were was deeply, profoundly religious. Every aspect of Sumerian life was infused with awareness of the divine. The gods weren't distant abstractions. They were present, active, demanding. Each city belonged to its patron deity. Uruk to Inanna, goddess of love and war. Ur to Nana, the moon god. Eridu to Enki, god of wisdom and water. The temples weren't just places of worship. They were the economic and administrative centers of the city-states. The gods owned the land, and the people worked it on their behalf, paying tithes that filled temple warehouses and funded public works. The ziggurats dominated the skyline, massive step pyramids built brick by brick, reaching toward the heavens. At the summit, a temple where the god could descend to meet with priests and receive offerings. These weren't built in a generation. They were constructed over centuries, each ruler adding levels, expanding the base, making the monument grander. Statement of devotion, yes, but also statements of power. A city that could mobilize the labor and resources to build a ziggurat was a city that commanded respect. The gods themselves were a complex hierarchy. An, the sky god, father of all. Enlil, lord of the air, who separated heaven from earth. Enki, who created humans to serve the gods. Ninhursag, the mother goddess. Below them, hundreds of lesser deities, each with specific domains, specific responsibilities. The Sumerians understood their gods as being like humans, but immortal and vastly more powerful. They had emotions. They fought among themselves. They made mistakes. They could be petty, jealous, generous, wise. You had to appease them through ritual and sacrifice. You had to read the signs they sent through dreams, through the flight of birds, through the patterns of sheep entrails examined by trained priests. Death held a particular significance. The Sumerians believed in an afterlife, but not a pleasant one for most. When you died, your spirit descended to Kur, the underworld, a dark realm beneath the earth ruled by Ereshkigal, the goddess of death. There you would be judged by the sun god Utu and the moon god Nana. The righteous might find a measure of peace. The wicked would suffer. But for most, the afterlife was simply a shadowy existence, a pale echo of life above, which made this life, here, now, all the more precious. It drove the Sumerian emphasis on accomplishment, on building things that would last, on making a name that would be remembered even after the body turned to dust. Their myths explained everything. How the world was created from the primordial waters of Abzu and Tiamat. How Enlil separated heaven from earth to make space for life. How Enki created humans from clay mixed with the blood of a slain god, making us part divine but bound to serve the gods through labor and worship. How the great flood came when humanity grew too numerous and noisy, disturbing the gods' rest, and how one righteous man, Ziusudra, was warned to build a boat and survive to restart civilization when the waters receded. These stories weren't unique to Sumer. That's what makes them so significant. The flood myth appears in Babylon, in Hebrew scripture, in Greek legends, in cultures across the world. The creation from primordial chaos, the divine hierarchy, the flawed gods who created imperfect humans. These patterns repeat because later cultures inherited them from Sumer, adapted them, made them their own. Mesopotamian myths Babylonian myths became biblical narratives. The thread runs unbroken from the clay tablets of Uruk to the books on your shelf today. But Sumer didn't exist in isolation. They traded, they fought, they influenced and were influenced by the peoples around them. To the east, Elam, sometimes enemy, sometimes ally, always rival. To the west, the Semitic tribes that would eventually conquer Sumer and build Akkad in Babylon. To the south, merchants from the Indus Valley, bringing exotic goods up the Persian Gulf. To the north, the Hurrians, the Gutians, peoples who would later sweep down from the mountains and shatter the Sumerian world. The relationship was complex. Sometimes the city-states united against external threats. Sometimes they hired foreign mercenaries to fight each other. Sometimes foreign rulers conquered Sumerian cities and adopted Sumerian culture, becoming more Sumerian than the Sumerians themselves. The great king Sargon of Akkad conquered all of Sumer around 2300 BC, but he kept Sumerian as the language of administration, maintained the temples, preserved the culture even as he built the world's first multi-ethnic empire. And this is key. Sumerian civilization didn't end with conquest. It transformed. It merged. The Akkadians took Sumerian writing and adapted it for their Semitic language. The Babylonians, centuries later, still studied Sumerian texts in their schools, the way we study Latin and ancient Greek. The cultural legacy persisted long after the ethnic Sumerians disappeared as a distinct people. Their innovations, their myths, their organizational systems spread across the ancient world and shaped every civilization that came after. By 2000 BC, ethnic Sumerians had largely vanished, absorbed into the Akkadian and Amorite populations that dominated Mesopotamia. But their cities remained, their temples still functioned, their libraries were still copied and studied, their agricultural techniques still fed millions, their legal concepts still governed disputes, their mathematical systems still measured and calculated. The people were gone, but the civilization lived on in everything that followed. And that's the pattern with truly transformative cultures. They don't end, they evolve, they seed the future. Every alphabet descends from writing systems that trace back through Phoenician and Aramaic to cuneiform. Every legal code references concepts the Sumerians first codified. Every empire studies the administrative systems they pioneered. Every irrigation-dependent civilization uses techniques they invented. They built the template, and we've been following it ever since. Consider what they accomplished in the span of just a few thousand years. They transformed from scattered agricultural communities into complex urban civilizations. They developed technologies that increased food production exponentially. They created art and literature that still moves us today. They built structures that dominated their landscapes for millennia. They established trade networks spanning thousands of miles. They made mathematics and astronomy into serious disciplines. They turned spoken language into preserved writing that could transmit knowledge across space and time. They did it all in a harsh environment with limited resources. No forests for timber, no stone quarries for building. They made bricks from mud and straw and built anyway. They imported copper and tin from distant mountains and created bronze anyway. They adapted. They innovated. They solved problems through ingenuity and cooperation. The Sumerian achievement is the proof that human beings, given motivation and organization, can transform their world completely within a few generations. But here's what haunts anyone who studies them deeply: the speed, the sophistication, the sense that they were reconstructing something that had been lost rather than inventing something entirely new. Their own myths say as much. They spoke of the time before the flood, when civilization first descended from heaven, when the gods walked among men and taught them the arts of culture, when kings ruled for thousands of years before the waters came and destroyed the old world. We dismiss these as myths, but myths are memories transformed by time. And the Sumerians were recording real events alongside their mythological traditions. Real kings, real wars, real construction projects. They understood the difference between history and mythology. So when they insist that civilization is older than the cities we can excavate, that there was knowledge before the flood that had to be preserved and passed down, should we dismiss it entirely? Or should we consider that they might have known something about their own past that we're only now beginning to suspect? The archaeological record shows that agriculture appeared in the Fertile Crescent around 10,000 BC. Small settlements emerged shortly after. But then there's a gap, thousands of years where development seems slow, incremental, and then suddenly around 4000 BC, everything accelerates. Cities appear, writing appears, complex technologies appear, almost simultaneously across a relatively small region, as if someone pressed fast forward on human cultural evolution. The Sumerians themselves attributed this to divine intervention. The gods taught them. The survivors of the flood preserved knowledge from before. The temple schools transmitted wisdom that was ancient even when Sumerian civilization was young. We prefer to explain it through environmental and social factors. Population pressure, climate change, trade networks. Probably true, probably sufficient, but it doesn't quite capture the strangeness of the Sumerian emergence, the completeness of their civilization from the earliest periods we can document. What we know for certain is that they changed everything. Before Sumer, humans lived in small groups, following herds, gathering plants, occasionally building permanent settlements, but nothing approaching urban complexity. After Sumer, the trajectory is clear. Cities, states, empires. The concentration of population, the specialization of labor, the accumulation of knowledge, the projection of power across vast distances. The pattern was set, and 5,000 years later, we're still following it. Just with better technology and bigger cities, and more sophisticated ways to organize the same basic human needs and desires. Their legacy is everywhere. In the calendar on your wall, divided into 12 months because the Sumerians tracked the moon. In the 60 minutes of your hour, the 60 seconds of your minute, because they worked in base 60 mathematics. In the 7-day week, borrowed from their planetary observations and Babylonian astronomy. In the written word that allows these ideas to reach you across time and space. In the very concept of law as something written down and applied equally, rather than decided arbitrarily by whoever holds power. In schools where children learn to read and write and calculate. In libraries that preserve knowledge for future generations. In temples and churches and mosques that serve as community centers as much as places of worship. In governments that balance competing interests through councils and assemblies. In trade networks that connect distant regions. In cities carefully planned with districts for different purposes. In the division of labor that allows specialization and expertise. In art that tells stories and preserves cultural memory. The Sumerians gave us the tools to build civilization. Not just the physical tools, though those too, but the conceptual tools, the organizational frameworks, the cultural practices, the very idea that humans could shape their environment, could create order from chaos, could preserve knowledge and pass it on, could work together at scale to accomplish things impossible for individuals or small groups. And perhaps most importantly, they showed us that civilization is fragile. It requires constant maintenance. The canals silt up if you don't dredge them. The walls crumble if you don't repair them. The knowledge is lost if you don't teach it. The peace breaks down if you don't maintain it. Sumerian civilization lasted 3,000 years, which seems like forever until you realize it's just 3 times longer than the United States has existed. And it fell. Not all at once. Gradually, through conquest and integration and transformation, until the people were gone, but the culture remained, embedded in everything that came after. We stand downstream from the Sumerians. Everything we build on foundations they laid. Every innovation extends techniques they pioneered. Every institution echoes structures they created. They were the first. And being first, they had no one to learn from, no one to imitate. They had to invent it all themselves, or remember it, or receive it from whoever came before the flood. That's the question that lingers. Were the Sumerians truly the first? Or were they the first we can document? The first whose cities are still visible in the desert, whose tablets we can still read, whose temples we can still excavate? They claimed there was civilization before them. They recorded it carefully. They built their temples on sacred mounds where civilization first ascended. They tracked their kings back beyond the flood to the time when rulers lived for thousands of years. We don't have to take them literally to take them seriously. They were telling us something about their understanding of time, of history, of cycles of creation and destruction. They were preserving memories of catastrophic events that reshaped their world. They were teaching their children that knowledge is precious because it can be lost, that civilization is an achievement that requires effort to maintain, that the works of the past deserve respect and study because they contain wisdom the present needs. 6,500 years after they first appeared in the desert between the rivers, we're still learning from the Sumerians. still studying their tablets, still excavating their cities, still translating their myths, still using their innovations, still wrestling with the same questions they wrestled with. How do we organize society fairly? How do we balance individual ambition with collective welfare? How do we preserve knowledge? How do we defend against destruction? How do we create meaning in the face of mortality? The Sumerians didn't have all the answers, but they asked all the right questions, and they built something remarkable enough, lasting enough, influential enough, that 5 millennia later, we're still trying to understand how they did it. Not just the technical details, though, those fascinate, but the deeper achievement, how they took the human capacity for cooperation, for creativity, for systematic thought, and channeled it into something that transformed our species forever. They invented civilization as we know it, not alone, not in isolation, but first, earliest, the template. And templates matter, because once the pattern exists, once someone proves it's possible, everyone who comes after can build on that foundation, can refine it, can adapt it, can make it their own. But the original breakthrough, that's harder. That requires vision, determination, the ability to imagine something that doesn't exist yet and will it into being through collective effort across generations. That was the Sumerian achievement. Not this or that invention, though each one mattered, but the whole package, the entire framework of complex society. They didn't just write the first chapter of recorded history, they wrote the instruction manual for how to create lasting civilization in a difficult world with limited resources and unlimited human ambition. And if they could do that 6,000 years ago, in the desert, with nothing but mud and reeds and human ingenuity, imagine what we could accomplish today if we remembered the lessons they tried so hard to teach us. That cooperation beats competition in the long run. That knowledge is power only if it's preserved and shared. That beauty and meaning matter as much as efficiency and production. That the gods, whatever form they take in your understanding, deserve respect, and the world they created deserves stewardship. The Sumerians are gone, but they left us everything we needed to continue their work. The question is whether we're wise enough to use it.